So recently we finally got a Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer, and now that the dust is settled, we've had a little time to evaluate what we've seen. And naturally, we at gameranx want to get on the speculation train, so let's talk about the new Final Fantasy VII battle system. So Final Fantasy VII is one of the more revered titles of all time, and it's also highly debated. People all love the game for very different reasons because it's a very multifaceted title. But one thing most people can agree on is that they really like the battle system. It is very much a throwback to the time. Back in 1997, our experience was mainly with Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger. Seeing a somewhat more streamlined and advanced version was very good. Since Final Fantasy IV, the series had employed an active time battle system which was basically turn-based, except for instead of literal taking turns, you had a time meter that filled up, and when it did, you were able to do your move. But in Final Fantasy VII, new things were added like limit break, the party was reduced to 3 members, and equipment was entirely revised. Things were different, and in a great way. It felt streamlined and fast, especially for a Final Fantasy battle system. But in 2015, you'd probably be pretty hard-pressed to call a Final Fantasy VII battle fast. Even turn-based games nowadays are significantly faster. Now, does that mean better? No, I'm not saying that one way is better than the other way. For me, Final Fantasy VII is possibly one of the best games of all time, and the battle system is a huge reason for that. That being said, I understand entirely where Square Enix is coming from in changing the battle system to be more modern. As much as some of us would absolutely love it to be 1997 again, it's just not. The thing I'm seeing the absolute most about the new battle system is people comparing it to the Crisis Core battle system, and that is a fair comparison. Crisis Core is just a lot more real-time than Final Fantasy VII's original battle system, giving you the ability to move around on the battlefield and perform your moves in real time. Essentially, Crisis Core is an action RPG. You can block, you can roll, you can attack, and you can do various special moves. And you also have to remember that it is Final Fantasy, so there's magic, and it's Final Fantasy VII, so it comes in the form of materia. Materia is chosen during battle by pressing the left or right shoulder buttons. On top of that, you can bring up an item menu and use items in battle, although none of this causes the battle system to slow down in any way, being that it's fully real time. I'd have to say it's maybe more fair even to say that the roots of this comparison go back to Kingdom Hearts, which kind of established a lot of what we're seeing in both Crisis Core and Final Fantasy VII's Remake. I would personally say that the new Final Fantasy battle system looks a lot more like Kingdom Hearts, as you have a small menu that goes along that resembles older Final Fantasies just a little bit more than Crisis Core does. You very clearly have an attack, magic, items, but in Final Fantasy VII's new battle system, we also have defend and summon. This has caused a few of my friends to absolutely not budge on the idea that they aren't actually changing the battle system, that they're just presenting it differently, which I'm not going to say is impossible. There's a chance that we'll just get the same battle system, albeit much cooler looking. I'm not discounting that, so please don't take what I'm going to say next as me saying that's impossible. I just don't think that's going to happen. Everything that I've looked at involving the new footage for the battle system is obviously very early, but I see some pretty clear signs that this is not an active time battle system. Okay, first we're obviously moving around the battle arena, and we're controlling one person. This more or less closely resembles the battle system that Square Enix has kind of been refining through various different games since Kingdom Hearts. This is the way that we're going to be playing Final Fantasy XV, except in Final Fantasy XV you cannot switch to other characters. It's pretty obvious that you can switch characters in the new Final Fantasy VII. We very clearly go between Cloud Strife and Barrett Wallace. In Final Fantasy XV, there's kind of a reason for it. They've created a system based around the idea that you are essentially a big fancy pants VIP. You play as a prince in the game, and everyone else is essentially your subject. It makes sense that really they just kind of have to do what they can to make sure you're alright. However, Final Fantasy VII is built very much on party work. If you entered a lot of the fights in the game as a lone wolf, you'd be a dead lone wolf pretty quick. The Final Fantasy VII Remake looks to really build upon that, but it's kind of hard to figure out exactly how. We're sort of sitting on footage that shows us simply switching between the characters and not really the nature of what happens when you do. The fight does, however, continue going on in the background while you're doing things as the character you're currently inhabiting. So again, we're definitely leaning towards a real-time system. The player is controlling Cloud in that sequence while Barrett does some attack of his own. Unless that's utterly cosmetic, which at this point I have to wonder if they would actually do that. It seems like it might piss people off, and I think that with something like this game, that's the last thing they want to do. Another thing I'd like to point out is that just like Final Fantasy XV, there's a targeting module. In fact, it even and looks extremely similar. Again, this signifies a pretty big possibility that the fights have moved into real time entirely. Now, bearing in mind the camera work, it looks nothing like Crisis Core. It does, however, look a very large amount like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy XV. But I will say there's something slightly more dramatic about the Final Fantasy VII fights camera angles than 15's. Now, can you chalk that up to trailer syndrome, where they make everything look a lot cooler than it is? Is it due to pacing, or is it entirely artistic? I don't know. Finally, what are those? So we've got what seems to me to be either an active time battle meter, or perhaps something like the way that you build up MP from Final Fantasy XV, in that as you attack it builds up to the limit. However, you also have MP in this little box. I figured besides that, the other possibility is it's some kind of a cooldown timer, or rather warm-up timer. Perhaps you can only use certain moves, or indeed a category of moves, every once in a while, to keep the battle from getting too uneven. As the meter fills up, you're basically waiting for your next turn to use it. When it turns red and it's full, that means you can use that move or category of moves or whatever. But we do know that the combination of what's going on the screen, as well as what's going on in the menu system, are really confusing to speculate as to how they go together. The battles in Final Fantasy VII have always been great, and I have a feeling that once we finally understand what's going on in the new version, it's also going to be great. But we're probably a ways off from understanding that. One thing I'm particularly excited for is once they do come out and tell us what this is taking what we speculated here in this video today and comparing it with what is actually how it's going to work. In many ways, that's some of the kind of fun that we can have before the game comes out and we can have fun with the game, or a series of episodes of the game. Whatever, Square Enix published Life is Strange and that did really well, so I trust they know what they're doing, especially knowing how long Final Fantasy VII was back when video game storytelling hadn't developed to the level of detail it is today. Anyway, what are your thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII Remake's battle system? Have you noticed anything we haven't caught yet? Believe me, it's a short period of footage, but you never know. The more eyeballs that are on it, the more chance of noticing something. Anyway, leave us a comment, let's discuss this. For Final Fantasy VII fans, this is like one of the most interesting times to live. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty excited for it. Also, click the like button because it's super important for us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. We upload new videos every single day, and the best way to see them first is a subscription. As always, we thank you an absolute ton for watching this video, and we will see you next time right here on gameranx.